Welcome. Here we are. It's been a really wild and wacky week. WWW no longer is that World Wide Web. It's Wild and Wacky Week. I think that's fair.
Yes, lots has happened indeed.
As you can already see here, Noah is rocking the popped collar look. He's going for sort
Yikes.
of a 1980s sort of very interesting look there.
No, I don't know. You know what? I like this orange
That
over
random
here.
bit of orange. I do wonder though, why include that? What does that do?
I don't know. I think it's the
Let me
only
check mine.
orange. Like, cause the tag, where is it? The
Hmm.
tag is orange, but I think this is like the only orange on this jacket. And you don't have any.
Mine just has a normal. The paisley continues.
Yeah.
And I'm actually, I just realized this shirt, this button-down shirt, I also got at the same going out of business Lord and Taylor. So I'm currently rocking a full Lord and Taylor outfit. Well, actually, the pants aren't, but shirt and blazer. We're looking at a grand total here of $38. Not bad.
That is hard to beat.
Okay, people are we'll talk about the iPhone SE. I do want to talk about the iPhone SE here. About this is a pretty funny comment, and I did the irony was not lost on me that I was sponsored by iPhone SE Case Company after I basically said don't buy the iPhone SE. But here's the thing, folks. The whole point of my video was that this is so old, so you can buy those cases, and they work on like 50% of the iPhones that are out there right now. So, yeah, in the video, I recommended not buying the new one, just buy the previous iPhone SE. Like, that one is now, if anything, I'm glad that the new one came out because now the old one is like under $300 for an A13. It's crazy how cheap, and like that is a ridiculously good deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I did mention, I mean, the cases are compatible with an iPhone 8 because, of course, there's no difference. Same phone externally. Oh, well, they did move the Apple logo. So,
Oh, that's innovation right there.
yeah, it took a lot of, they spent at least 4 or 5 weeks on that one.
That
Oh,
took
yes. And then
courage.
people were also talking here about the
Oh yeah.
autofill iOS. Yeah, wow, we have a lot to talk about this week, actually.
Yeah.
There's also this,
Mm-hmm.
which you may notice is not plugged into anything. I'll give you guys the update on that. My goodness, a lot has happened. Good golly.
Yeah.
In fact, I almost wonder, Noah, if so much has happened that we might as well, I think we should probably just start early.
Yeah, I think we can allow that.
Have a few extra minutes here because I do have to get going right at 10 or 7, right?
Yes.
7 your time. That's what yeah. All right. Yeah, I think we I say we just give it a rumble, huh?
Okay, give me 1 sec here.
Yes, me as well. All right, I am good to go if you are.
Right, I'm good.
Welcome to Dark Mode, the podcast that brings you sage advice from 2 technology experts. And that's not just what we call ourselves, it's what our moms tell people when they autofill the iOS 2-factor authentication code. I'm your host, Luke Miani.
And I'm your host, Noah Rubin. On this show, we take questions from listeners, attempt to answer them to varying degrees of success, and maybe even have a laugh or two along the way.
Now, straight away here, I'm looking at the chat here, and already we have to talk about the wall panels because so far, I think we're making this a trend.
Mm-hmm.
Any panels falling today? We've got some people guessing 4 panels. I think, Noah, what we need is a good old-fashioned poll. And
Oh, yes.
how many options can we put in the poll?
There is no limit to the number of options in the poll, actually.
Well, then let's do 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and let's put it up here. And honestly, yeah, I mean, I think this is the logical place to start because Noah's wall panels have captivated the nation and indeed the world.
Absolutely. It's we had quite the upset last time,
We
I have to
did. That
say.
was, if you weren't watching last week, then you missed a real roller coaster of emotion because I mean, it went absolutely crazy. It was
Yeah,
one of the most riveting things I've ever seen.
it was at the end. It was only in the last like 10 minutes or so
Yeah.
that they all fell down. And they
It
fell
was it was
down.
literally at the last possible moment and then all hell broke loose.
Mhm.
It's yeah, so definitely we're going to have to pull that up here.
Yeah, I'm working on
Um
that. We maybe come back to it in a minute.
yeah. So well, while we're working on that, get ready with your wall panel guesses here. We're gonna work on that and we'll see what happens. We should theoretically have some time here because the wall panels are fresh. The adhesive is sticky and grippy. So while Noah's talking about the wall panels and whether or not they'll grip, here's something that is definitely not gripping: the iPhone SE. Did you like that transition?
That was pretty good.
That was pretty good. So in the chat, we were talking about it. It's my most recent video. We got to talk iPhone SE for a second here. Um, no, no, just don't. We got Evan here in the chat saying iPhone SE gonna get roasted tonight. You're darn right it is. Look, in 2020, the iPhone SE was a very good recipe. It was a previous but not, completely out of date design that was given a new lease on life with absolute flagship internals and an extremely low and very compelling price. So, back when the iPhone SE 2020 came out, up until that moment, which is almost exactly 2 years ago, Apple was still selling the iPhone 8 and they sold that for $449. So, when the iPhone SE came out, what they effectively did was take the iPhone 8, cut $50 off of its price, and replace its A11 internals with brand new ones. Oh, heck yeah. That was at that point, the iPhone 8 was 3 years old. So we're talking about, iPhone 11. Apple sells the iPhone 11 right now. So it would be like, Apple putting the iPhone 11 with A15, 5G for $400. Heck yes. People love that. That's a great idea. A lot of people still like the old design, wanted to keep using their case, um, wanted Touch ID, weren't quite ready for Face ID. Instant success. However, it's now been 2 years, two more entire full years, and design wise, absolutely not a thing has changed. They also don't even have millimeter wave 5G, if I'm correct, or was it sub 6? Whatever the one for ultra wideband, I'm pretty sure the SE doesn't have.
Mm.
So, really, the 5G aspect, I think, is kind of moot because the 5G for me at this point in 2022 has just basically been a little icon in the top corner of the screen. I noticed no functional difference except for in the all of 3 times in the past year and a half that I've seen ultra wideband, and that was only useful because I ran a speed test.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, the ultra wideband is super cool, but it's very sparse and like the speeds are insane, but like what are you gonna do? You're gonna be standing on a street corner with your phone, like what are you like? Oh, I gotta download a bunch of stuff. It's ultra
Yeah.
wideband, like
Oh yeah, I'm gonna download a Steam game on this sidewalk.
yeah.
Like, I don't know. And another thing here is some people were saying it's even faster in perfect conditions. Here's the thing. iPhones are all fast. Even the iPhone 8, which is 5 years old, and the design that is still going on here, even the iPhone 8 is very fast. The thing that dates an iPhone is not fast or slow. That was the case back when I upgraded to my iPhone 6 from the iPhone 5. That was, wow, the new phone is way faster. Now, the issue isn't speed, it's battery and its screen. Going to the old, giant forehead, giant chin, Touch ID instead of Face ID. Promotion is another thing that makes an iPhone feel fast, but even though it's, basically the same, having a battery that runs out really quickly, those are the things that you're going to notice. Using an A14 and an A15 feels identical. It's those other factors that you really notice, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's a good point, because like any iPhone within the past couple years, probably even longer, is gonna be totally, like even, and I always bring this up, like my iPad, my 2018 iPad Pro, that
Same.
thing is just as fast as it was when I got it in, late 2018, and now we're in 2022, and it's just as fast as it was. So that's never the problem. The problem, or the discussion, is always around like the design and the features, Touch ID versus Face ID, the bezels and all the other stuff that we're talking about here.
And Cole Weathers brings up an excellent point here. He says, would have been brilliant if they sold it at a loss like Costco rotisserie chickens. That's, I think, a very apt analogy. Apple apparently did not use the rotisserie chicken model for the iPhone SE. I feel like it's a bit of a slap in the face to reintroduce the same 5-year-old design and then increase the price. Like, okay, what the heck? Realistically, the only possible reason that you would buy the iPhone SE 2022 is because it's going to get support for approximately 1,000 years. Although if you think about it, actually, iPhones get support for, what are we going to say, like 7 years?
Yeah.
By the time, let's assume the iPhone 6S finally, God rest its soul, bites the dust with this year's iOS update. That'll be a full 7-year cycle for an iPhone. That's nuts. That's insane.
Yeah.
So if we assume a 7-year cycle for the A13 and then the A15, of course, that would be 7 years from now. So that would mean the current iPhone SE would get support until 2029. 2029, by which point the iPhone SE's design will be the same age as the iPhone 4 is now.
Yeah.
I mean, I get buying a phone for having a lot of support life, but you'd effectively be using an iPhone 4 by that point, and I'm sorry, but I don't think that's a good reason to buy the phone, especially when you could buy the last iPhone SE, which looks the same, will still get support until the design is 10 years old, and costs like $250. Just do that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because like this is obviously the cheapest iPhone, or I shouldn't say cheapest, but the least expensive iPhone that Apple offers. And, obviously it still gets the same amount of support, but it's like you'd think, maybe there's some people who don't care. They want to get the cheapest phone. They just want a phone. They want an iPhone and they're fine with it. But if you're buying the cheapest phone, you could afford, or you'd be easier to justify upgrading it sooner than if you bought, let's say, $1,000 iPhone. So as much as like the extra support is great, maybe some people want that, but like, at some point, you can take a step and upgrade that phone.
Yeah, especially when you're talking about the on the lower end here, iPhones really don't depreciate all that much.
Yeah.
Once you get below $500, whatever you pay for your phone, you're not going to lose more than probably 50% of that over several years. So, yeah, the iPhone is more accessible than it has ever been before. And to me, that means it's not worth buying the new iPhone SE because, like, as I had in my video, I had a couple of alternatives. I had three other options. Option number one, cheapest iPhone out there, buy the old iPhone SE. You can buy them like new for 300 or 350. You can buy them refurbished for 250 and you're not going to notice a difference. I guarantee. You go out there, ask any tech reviewer, they'll tell you the iPhone SE is great, it's cheap, it's whatever. You give them an iPhone SE 2020 and an iPhone SE 2022 and don't let them look in these system preferences, they won't be able to find the difference unless they live in an area with 5G. And even then, that'll only be because they can see the icon. The other option, you want something small. iPhone 12 mini is smaller. Battery life is equally bad. Neither of them are great, but you know that going in. So you get the small screen, you get 64 gigabytes of storage, you get 5G, same price. You can buy them all day long. Amazon Renewed. You can go on Declutter. There's a billion different ways that you can get an iPhone 12 mini for the same price. Third option, you want to have a little bit of a hybrid thing. Maybe you want something that feels modern. You don't really care about 5G. You want some good battery life. iPhone 11 Pro. Got your 3-camera setup, feels very modern, Face ID, all that jazz. Battery life is superb, competitive with iPhone 13s even. Same price, $430, $450. So, yeah, people will defend the iPhone SE, and I get that argument when it applies to the old one. The new one is stupid. That's my take.
That makes a lot of sense. I think there are definitely some better options out there, and I think hopefully next year Apple, there were the rumors that Apple was going to switch the SE to the iPhone 11 style design. Obviously, that didn't happen this year. Hopefully next year, maybe it'll be more compelling at that point. But I do agree that this, the one as it stands is not the best option in that price area.
Because the iPhone 11 you can buy from Apple still for I think $499, I think, right?
I think so.
Let's find out. Yeah, 64 gigabytes is $499. So, man, if they iPhone SE'd that, then we'd be talking again. A16 or I guess A15 because we have that rumor that apparently the A16 is only going to the Pro models this year.
I did hear that. That's weird.
Weird, right? Because
Yeah.
if you saw the leaked designs, the CADs that came out, and I actually have the CAD files, I'll tell you what, my guy, the thing looks identical to an iPhone 13. So like same size screen. I think it's maybe a little thicker, so it has probably better battery, but the same chip, the same screen, the same lack of promotion, the same design. Why would you buy that? I don't really know what their angle's going to be there.
Yeah, that's weird. It almost sounds like what they did with the SE this year, compared to the previous one. But I guess the Pro models were supposed to be getting the hole punch cameras, is that right? But not the regular ones?
Yes. My understanding is the Pro models look, again, very, very, very similar, but the camera bumps are even larger, if you can imagine that. In fact, an observation that I made when looking at the CAD files for the iPhone 14 Pro, and you're going to love this, Noah.
Okay.
The thickness of the phone at its camera bump, so the thickest point, is thicker than the original iPhone.
Really?
Yeah. by
Wow.
like by like a millimeter. What? Oh,
That is kind of crazy. I mean, it's funny because like, yeah, I guess it started with, the original iPhone was fairly thick, and then they were going in the direction of being as thin as possible, which obviously wasn't the right way to go, but now they're going in the other direction.
mm,
And like, I don't like the camera bump. I wish it could sit flush. I understand it's like a lot of, you know, equipment or whatever that has to be in there, but like there were some renders or rumors or something that the camera was going to be flush in the back, and like
yeah.
I thought that looked pretty good.
Now, so that you're talking about John Prosser's renders, which were based on very credible info. I almost wonder if that's like for next year.
Hmm.
It's also very possible that, when you're talking about leaking an iPhone a year in advance, there's lots of time for designs to change, prototypes come and go. So, some people are like, "Oh my god, John was wrong." I wouldn't so much say wrong as early, because that's kind of how it goes with Apple leaks.
Hmm. Yeah, it could. If we could see flush cameras, we could see an even thicker camera bump. Whoever leaked both of those could very well both be right, and designs change or things get pushed back or whatever it is. But I will say regarding the camera bump, it would be nice. Honestly, though, like I have uh my wallet on the back, and that kind of offsets
True.
the camera bump. But if I didn't have this and it like doesn't stay like flat on the table, that always annoys me. I'm like putting it on the table and like the cameras are like scraping on the table. It's
Oh
just the
yeah.
worst. I don't like
Mm,
it.
I definitely agree. I remember being very concerned when I got my iPhone 6 Plus, because that was the first time that there was a
Hmm.
camera bump, and I was very worried about scratching what is now, in hindsight, a tiny, tiny, tiny little piece of metal compared
Uh-huh.
to the bedazzled things that we have now. But I can no longer, we can't talk about the iPhone SE anymore. I can't stomach it. It's here. Look, gone. What did I hit? I hit my table. Don't worry about it.
Oh
I
no.
can't talk about it anymore. Let's get the poll up here, because we got to go back. Now that we have it here, let me pull up the link here on the stream. We have to talk about the wall panels. How
Of
many wall
course.
panels are we going to lose on today's stream? That is the question that I pose unto you. Let me go ahead and share my screen as we start to get these results in. I I have not yet decided where I will fall on the prediction. Noah, have you?
I went ahead. So I believe that in the last episode we started with it was, well, it happened at the very end, but it was
Hmm.
looking like it was going to be four, and then I think a fifth one fell off
Well,
like
we
right at the end.
started with none, and then like
Right.
7 minutes from the end, we had three in very quick succession. We were like, wow, it was three, and then a fourth one happened, and then at the last second, we got to five.
That's right. So
So
I
three,
I
four,
went with
five are
four.
all very good guesses here. I'm gonna say three. I'm splitting the difference,
Okay.
because three was very nearly right, and I'm gonna go based on the assumption that we don't repeat history. That's what I'm going for. So it looks like most of you guys agree. Uh, Three very optimistic individuals have said zero. We've got 3 votes for one, 3 for 2, 9 votes for three, 10 votes for three, I dare say. And then 3, 4, and one very pessimistic person saying every single wall panel is gone.
Oh, I hope not.
We shall see. We shall see. Now, as we'll let you guys vote on this, and this is of course going to be ongoing throughout the show. So I do want to address this super chat here from Second City Saint. Luke, do you expect the M2 to beat 13th Gen and Zen 4 in single core performance, all launching this year? Well, I sure hope, because I actually have a couple of Alder Lake machines running around here for some videos that I'm working on, probably for end of the month or early April. And let me tell you guys, Alder Lake is fast. It's so fast. But it's not efficient. I mean, what I'm working on now is a video. I basically built the PC that Apple said they could beat, 12900K 3090, and it's faster. It just is. I don't know what benchmarks Apple used. Well, I suspect they used GFX Bench. Oh my gosh, is that our first panel?
Yes.
Everyone who voted for 0 is devastated right now. They were very optimistic, and I applaud them, but they were foolish.
You can't take your vote back, unfortunately.
Although, wait, should we close the poll? Because I feel like this might start to influence our results.
That's true. I did not implement an easy way to end a poll early, so
Well, oh well,
this is not
we
scientific.
screwed ourselves. Yeah, this is not scientific, but let's find out. For those asking where to vote, URL is on the screen. Although I suppose we, at this point, might as well have knocked off. Why did we even think to include 0 as an option? That was never going to happen.
Well, 5 people seem to think that it could have, for some reason.
But one of the things that I'm noticing here when we're talking about M2, Apple does have their work cut out for them. You know, when the M1 chip came out and you're talking about Intel 11th gen, that was like, it was a bloodbath. It was a bloodbath. Even the M1 chip was taking on high-end Core i7s. But I will tell you right now, I've got a Core i7 12700H in the studio, which is second from the top in terms of Intel stack. They have a 12800, which I think is slightly better. And then, of course, there's the 12900K, the i9. The 12700H, even running on battery life, which, as we know in Windows laptops, slows it down. Even on battery life, it's faster than the M1 Max.
That's impressive for Intel.
Yeah. Now, granted, it's louder, it's thirstier, but what we've basically got here is Apple has like a turbocharged 4-cylinder engine, and they've got that pushing a lot of horsepower. Right? It's impressive. They're really doing it. They're getting like 350 horsepower out of a 2-liter turbocharged engine. It gets great gas mileage. It's very fast for what it is. But Intel, they've got a V8. They just do. And by God, is it loud? By God, is it just like slurping on the Earth's resources like a smoothie? But it's fast.
Yeah, that's you know, I don't know. Apple, I personally think that Apple strikes, especially with their laptops, they strike a very good balance between performance and efficiency. But and you know, you can you know, you can look at the noise and the battery life and all of that stuff, and you can say, you know, maybe Apple's a little bit slower, maybe their chips are not quite as powerful, but you're getting a lot in addition. You know, you're losing a little bit of power, but you're getting a lot for that. But I guess especially with the desktops, you know, now we've got the Mac Studio, and you know, the Mac Pro is going to be coming eventually, and you know, now's the time where all of that is not quite as important.
Absolutely. And I mean, you still do get benefits. I mean, we're talking about a Mac Studio that is about the size of the power supply of the PC I'm comparing it to. That's impressive. That is really, really impressive. Um, Now, how valuable is that to you? I guess it depends. In my opinion, building a desk setup and having something small like this, it is, important. A lot of studios, right? That's the whole place that they've imagined this being used. If we're talking about like a research lab, it's super nice that they could essentially put the thing in like a drawer, have it out of the way. It doesn't take up space. It doesn't clutter a desk. You can have lots of room for other stuff. There's plenty of, maybe you put it on a cart and you wheel it around and plugs in, and then you have your whole system on like a little wheelie cart in a photography studio or something. There's definitely reasons why you would want to have a really ridiculously small form factor case. But on the other hand, you can overcome, with a stationary product, you can overcome a limitation like size, or like find a workaround and then just be done with it. With a laptop, you kind of notice the benefits of being thin and light with good battery life, right? Because that's what Apple Silicon's good at. So to have a 14-inch MacBook Pro that has very respectable battery life and a ton of horsepower, you notice that every time you take it somewhere. But with a desktop, I don't know. I don't know that you're noticing that efficiency as much as you are noticing a lack of power compared to some PCs in certain applications.
Yeah, that's definitely. First of all, I think it's really interesting when you said, the Mac Studio is like the size of the power supply of the PC. I never thought about it that way, but like honestly, yeah, it is. It is really impressive when you think about it like that. Um, and it's like, I don't know, it's like really cool thing to have on your desk, and obviously it fits very nicely with the studio display. It's just the right height to sort of fit under there, and it's a nice little setup there. But like you said, it's a desktop thing, and in most cases, wherever your desktop is, it's gonna stay there. And if it's a louder one, you put it on the floor and it's not that big of a deal, and it's going to just stay where it is, and you're not really going to notice that kind of stuff.
You know what you will notice though, Noah? We got to
What's
talk
that?
about it. You will notice the lack of upgradable storage. We got to unpack this, cuz that was the big story that kicked off pretty much immediately after we were on last week. We were here last Sunday night. 12 hours later, I posted the video that started quite an interesting debate. Was, I think, quite possibly the fastest gaining video in terms of views that I've ever had. I don't think I've had a video that got to 100,000 views as fast as that one did.
Wow.
It was a topic that a lot of people were interested in. And it started a lot of conversations because I have never experienced having so many people in my DMs saying, "Did you try this? Try that? Try using this different type of cord, or try this one." I did do a part 2 where I consulted with some Apple employees, actually, of the Genius Bar, and they told me about like what the process is for them. So if you didn't catch that series, or Noah, if there's been a lot, right? I think it might be helpful to summarize my understanding based on testing that I did, based on what iFixit found, based on the Genius Bar employees that I talked to, and Twitter threads that explained it, that were reacting to my videos. A lot sorry, my air conditioning kicked on and my noise cancellation is on here, and it scared me because I thought it was a computer fan, but of course that's ridiculous because I'm on Apple Silicon, so I was very confused.
Of course.
Anyway, here's what we think the situation is, because my initial test was straight swap, right? Blank SSD, same size, both in M1 Ultra devices. swapping them around, and found that without doing anything to the system itself, it doesn't like that. So basically, what that means is adding a second module. And I said module, not SSD. I'll get to that in a second. Adding a second module, doesn't like it. Swapping out the module, doesn't like it. Module of a different size, doesn't like it. So the next step was using Configurator 2, which is what you use if you upgraded to Monterey and your Apple Silicon Mac got bricked. Oops, sorry. Oops, that whole thing.
Yep.
Did that happen to you, or were you good?
I didn't have a problem with that.
Yeah, I didn't either. In fact, actually, all my Mac Studios shipped with 12.2, so all of them had to get updated right out of the box. But I did do that, by the way. So all of the testing was done on, every Mac involved. The Mac Studios and the Macs that I was running Configurator 2 on were all completely up to date on the newest version of Monterey, the newest version of Configurator 2, just for the record. So no issue of compatibility there. Now, when I was doing the testing on Monday and Tuesday, that was after Configurator was updated with support for the Mac Studio, and after Apple's instructions were updated with support for the Mac Studio. So the second experiment was iFixit was able to swap. They had two base model M1 Maxes with the 512 gig SSD, and they were able to swap the SSD or the storage modules, and they were able to revive and restore them with Configurator 2 and get them to work. My experiment was different than theirs, though, because I had an M1 Ultra and an M1 Max, which meant I had a 512 gig and a 1 terabyte. So iFixit basically saw that if you use Configurator, at least if everything goes well, because it's been pretty buggy, you could switch your storage for another one of the same size. And that could be seen as good. However, what I then found was trying the same experiment, taking the 512 gig out, putting a 1 terabyte in, no good. Doesn't like that. And a lot of people had suggested, like, oh, maybe you're using the wrong cord, or you have to download the IPSW manually and do a manual IPSW. I tried all of those things, and I used the cord that comes with the MacBook to charge, because that's what the Apple Store techs use. It's kind of weird, but these are the MacBook charging cords. That's what the techs use. I tried that. I tried the same Thunderbolt 3 cord that I use for my media drive. Tried it both ways. Nothing works. And what makes that even more, assured is what doesn't work with the 1 terabyte in the M1 Max model immediately works when you switch back. Putting the 512 back in, boom, it works. Same method. So essentially what we're finding here is the storage modules that Apple is using are not SSDs. They're dumb storage. They're literally just a little board with NAND chips on them. There's no controller, there's no DRAM. Everything is handled by Apple Silicon. It's handled on chip. So, that's something that makes sense in an M1, right? Because that's, it's an iPad, it's your entry-level MacBooks. And to be honest, I don't even mind that the base M1 isn't upgradable, because tablets, Ultrabooks often aren't. It's regrettable, but that's just not really that unusual. What is unusual is going to the effort of designing a $5,000 machine with a very, very powerful chip and designing it to have storage that is on a removable medium but not going to the energy, or I suspect deliberately not going through the process of making it so that you can utilize that capability. The fact that you can have a machine right here, this is $4,000. It comes with 1 terabyte of storage and an empty slot. An empty slot. And you can't do anything about that. And I think that's a real shame.
Yeah, there was a lot of interesting discussion on Twitter after you posted about this, and I guess one of the main things was people saying, well, Apple said that it's not upgradable, and so you shouldn't be surprised that you can't upgrade the storage, right? And first of all, that is true. Apple did say it's not upgradable, and I don't think the point is, obviously you weren't expecting it. I don't think you went into this expecting it to be upgradable, or maybe you were hoping that it would be, but like Apple tells you it's not upgradable, and so you're assuming that it's not, right?
Yeah, when they did the event, I was fully expecting it to just be soldered on the motherboard, on the logic board, just like in a MacBook Pro. Oh, that's 2. Interesting.
That's number 2.
Lots of time here. Those people that were up high on those numbers are sitting pretty right now, because there's 29 minutes left and we're already at 2.
Yeah.
But so to clarify, in no way was I surprised that the Mac Studio isn't upgradable. That that was 100% expected. The MacBook Pro isn't. Nothing has been upgradable for a very long time, except for the Mac Pro, because it needs to be. And if they don't, there's going to be riots. But what was surprising is that Apple decided, hey, let's design this with a removable storage module, because clearly it made sense for their manufacturing. I would imagine for data recovery, it makes a lot of sense. All of these are the obvious reasons why everyone else uses removable storage. And Apple clearly saw that there's merit to that. And that you don't necessarily have to make the compromise of like using an NVMe standard drive in a MacBook Pro. You could argue, I personally don't agree, but you could argue, well, having the extra space for that standard size module might make a device thicker. It might make the logic board larger and eat into the room that you have for battery. There are discussions you could have there. But on a desktop, I don't know that really applies. There's plenty of room in there physically. And clearly Apple saw that using removable storage made sense here. It made sense for them to produce, because it means you have fewer logic board variants, right? You can basically say, look at the M1 Ultra, for example. The M1 Ultra has 2 configurations, 48 or 64 core. So Apple only has to manufacture 2 logic boards. That is one of the key reasons I would imagine that Apple's going this route. They only need to make 2 different logic boards. And then it's a matter of, did the customer spec it with 1, 2, 4, or 8 terabytes? So you've got 4 storage configurations, which crucially are independent of which logic board was ordered. That is why they're doing this. Making different versions of the boards is expensive, and it means that you have to then offer parts and be able to replace for at least 3 years all of those different build to order configurations. I had that issue with a Vega 20 MacBook Pro a couple of years ago, where it had a problem. Well, it had a keyboard problem. I went in, the Genius Bar broke the thing, so it wasn't turning on. And they were like, well, it's going to take months for us to get a non-current, non-standard replacement board, because it was custom, right? So it was like it was going to take them ages, and they ended up having to give me a new MacBook Pro just because it would take so long. So it absolutely makes sense to offer two logic boards that you have to produce, and then you just put your storage modules in them and you ship them. It makes a lot of sense. What doesn't make sense is locking it down, because that's what they're doing.
Right.
There's no reason to, like, I feel like you have to intentionally design something such that it can't be user upgraded when you've designed it to be like this.
Yeah, it seems like it's a software lock because, I understand that these modules are, they're dumb storage, like you said, because the
Mm.
M1 or the Apple Silicon chip handles, all of the data access and all of that stuff. And obviously, there's reasons for that. It can, make it faster, and it gives, more control to the processor rather than having to rely on an external controller that is, making its own decisions and prioritizing its own, operations in whatever order it does. But when you can do a DFU restore and you can, wipe the machine and reinstall the firmware and all of that, then at that point you should be able to swap the chips out. Right. Don't expect to save your data necessarily. I mean, maybe you would be able to, but don't expect to save your data or anything. But if you put a separate, like you put a chip in there and you reset, essentially factory reset the computer, there's no good reason as far as I can tell. Or I guess there's one. The one good reason as far as I can tell is maybe security. Maybe there's some, certificate or some encryption or something that links the storage module to the motherboard, and maybe only the Genius Bar has the tool to re-sign a storage module. That's the only reason that I can think of. And at that point the question is really maybe you're willing to make that sacrifice to be
Mhm.
able to upgrade the storage, and Apple's just not giving you that choice.
Exactly. And I understand you bring up the point of security, and that is fair. But I I personally don't think that it's a trade-off that I'm willing to take, and you're surrendering control to Apple to basically say, "Okay, we are going to determine what you're able to do with a $5,000 machine over the course of its life, because we've decided that data privacy is more important to you than upgradability," when that might not be true. For me, I don't give a rat's ass about like how secure it is, right? It's a desktop. I'll lock my door. All right. If someone like it's not as big a deal to me to say, oh, if someone steals my Mac Studio, my data's good. I mean, it's iCloud locked. It's there's lots of other things that are there anyway, right? So I'm not even worried if someone steals the Mac Studio, because I've got it iClouded. I've got, Firewall disk protection. It's all there, right? I don't need Apple to be making these decisions when, you know, I would absolutely have loved if I was able to say, "Oh, guess what? Month or 2 down the line, you can make the decision on your own to upgrade the storage in your Mac Studio." That would have been fantastic. I would have done that. I would have made a video on it. But they decided, "Nope, ain't gonna happen." And to your point, Noah, about like it being a software lock, I've seen some people saying like, "Oh, well, no, it's not. It's more than that. It's more complicated. The controller on the board isn't capable of understanding different storage because it's dumb storage. So there's a handshake that goes on, and there's like all of these complicated things." Look, I'm just saying I don't know for sure how the system works, but if you think that Apple is shipping these computers with a logic board that is irreversibly programmed or manufactured in such a way that it can only recognize one certain configuration of storage, I don't believe you. I don't believe you because of what I was saying earlier. Why the whole reason that it would make sense to design the Mac Studio with removable storage is because you can only is because you can only manufacture 2 different logic board versions. There's 2 different SKUs for the M1 Max, 2 different SKUs for the M1 Ultra, and that's all you have to manufacture. That's the reason why you would do that. So if you then essentially undo all of that supply chain simplification by making it so that you're manufacturing some physicalized, SSD controller that can only see one size, then you've completely undone, like, that was just a pointless exercise. So there absolutely is a way, in Apple land somewhere, for them to upgrade this. And I simply don't believe that it's physically impossible. And if it is physically impossible, which it isn't, then they made it that way on purpose. So either way, they get no points. And I do also want to say, Ryan's comment here, realize you were in the top 1% of users. Apple has to serve everyone. I agree. They do. They have to serve everyone. And I don't really see how restricting the capabilities of a $5,000 machine is serving everyone. I think it's serving them.
Yeah, and also the if you look at the audience, or I guess the customer base for the Mac Studio, right? We're talking about the Mac Studio. This is like right now the most powerful Apple Silicon Mac that you can buy, and theoretically, once the Mac Pro comes out, it'll still be the second most powerful. However you want to think about it. But this is the one that like the top 1% of people are using. If they're using Apple Silicon, if they're using an Apple Silicon desktop right now, this is the one that they're going to be using. And this is the only one that we've seen so far that has storage that works like this. So that's, I think that's why it's relevant.
And if yes, I am in the top 1% of Apple users, because I'm, not a large there's not a large volume of Mac Studios that are going to ship, especially the high end ones, right? But the higher end you go, the more likely people are going to want to do this. Like, I fully understand that in the case of the MacBook Air, nobody that's buying a MacBook Air, and I mean relatively speaking, gives a hoot whether its storage is upgradable. Most of the people that buy a MacBook Air don't really fully know what storage even is. They don't know what RAM is. They don't know what the M1 chip is. The most of the people that I know that bought the M1 MacBook Air bought it because the keyboard doesn't suck anymore. They didn't even know what Apple Silicon was. So I get that. On a MacBook Air, this might be an unpopular opinion on the right to repair crowd, but I almost think on a MacBook Air, it doesn't even matter that the storage is not removable. Obviously, I'd like it to be, but for 99.9% of the people that buy it, doesn't matter at all. With the Mac Studio, a much, much higher percentage of the people that buy it do care and would love to be able to do that. And it's a real shame that Apple has basically said, we acknowledge here at Apple, we acknowledge that you guys are professionals. You want high-end machines. You're willing to spend thousands of dollars. You want this to be the best of the best. But we're going to lock it down and prevent you from making it better. It's insulting at $5,000. It really is.
Yeah, I don't know. Apple, in some ways they've been going in the right direction lately. If you look at the Mac Studio overall and like the MacBook Pro overall and Apple Silicon overall, but there's always got to be like something that gets you. And they're doing a lot right, but they can never do everything right, or they refuse to do everything right, I should say.
Yeah. And a lot of people, I do want to point out, let me see if I can go back and find these things, but people were like, this is terrible. Steve Jobs would never have done this. If Steve Jobs, here's one. Steve Jobs would make sure everything is repairable by the end user. Or if Steve Jobs was alive today, would the Apple Corporation be conducting business this way? Yeah. One of the big reasons that Steve Jobs got kicked out of Apple in the 80s was because the original Macintosh was completely proprietary. He wanted it to be completely proprietary, separate from any other standard. He didn't want users to get into it at all. That was like a big part of why the Macintosh did not have a successful launch and why Steve Jobs left Apple. So this idea that Steve Jobs would have done it differently, I fully disagree. I fully disagree. I think that Steve Jobs in the 2000s, when we were talking about hard drives and RAM, that was at a time when it didn't make sense for them to solder RAM or SSD storage because, quite frankly, there weren't SSDs to use. But whenever Apple had a chance to make something not user upgradable, they did. I mean, they were selling iMacs with soldered GPUs in a time when every comparable desktop didn't do that. As soon as the MacBook Air came out in 2008, that was Steve Jobs from top to bottom. That had a non-standard iPod hard drive and soldered RAM because they were able to make the RAM soldered at that point. So the idea that Steve Jobs would have given you this like little hatch on the bottom with a shiny lever, it says upgrade, and it would like have like this beautiful little mechanism and let you get inside it. No, absolutely not. I do not believe that for a second. I do not think that any of this is contrary to what Steve Jobs would have wanted.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of things definitely would have been different at Apple. There are definitely things that would be different if Steve Jobs were still there, but this is not one of them.
Here's a good comment. The Steve Jobs that had to be tricked into having an internal port inside the first Mac. Yeah, that's Steve Jobs. So, yeah, a lot of people, Steve Jobs, you can't deny, was a visionary, right? And did some amazing stuff. But I think people kind of miss a lot now that Steve Jobs isn't here to, make the decisions. It's very easy. It's very, very easy to deify the former when they're not around to give you their actual take.
Yeah, true.
Now, actually, in keeping with this, I do have some bad news for you guys. Talking about this Mac Studio situation. Because this Mac Studio, which is what I've been holding up the whole show, currently this Mac Studio is non-functional. I told you guys how Configurator 2 was buggy. Well, this right here is a $4,000 bug. Because for the past 5 days since I've done that video, I have not been able to revive the M1 Ultra Mac Studio. Yeah, this is the 48-core, $4,000 machine with its original SSD back in it. Keep that in mind. And it still won't work. It doesn't work. It won't boot on. It's stuck essentially in DFU mode. When I attempt to restore it, it takes too long and fails. If I attempt to revive it, it takes too long and fails. If I attempt to restore it using any combination of cables, any combination of IPSWs, essentially it goes through most of the process, and then upon restarting, it just goes right back into DFU mode. Configurator 2 gets confused because it's supposed to be booting into the newly installed Recovery OS. Instead, it's in DFU mode again, and you end up in a loop. And I have not been able to get so much as even an output to another display or a chime or a noise, nothing, since Monday. And this wasn't even the machine. Get this. This wasn't even the machine that I was doing the experiment on. That was the M1 Max. This one, I took the SSD out. It sat. My experiment failed. I put the SSD back in. That's it. And it is still bricked currently. Hopefully not permanently, but how rough is that?
Yeah, that really sucks. I wonder if you took it to the Apple store, would they be able to tell that you opened it yourself?
Oh yeah, very easily. Because to get at the SSDs or the storage modules, you have to peel off this like tape on it, and it's very obvious that that has been done. It's also very obvious because you have to take off the rubber ring on the bottom, and so it goes back on quite well. The adhesive stays sticky, and like you can go into one of these and then cover up your tracks. Like as you can see here, it looks totally stock, right? Like it's not lumpy, it's not like wobbly or anything. It doesn't come off. So it's the rubber bottom isn't, the destruction of this machine, but they would be able to tell that it's been done, and I don't know that they would repair it. I might try to take it down there because it's a $4,000 machine that doesn't turn on right now. And Ryan said $4,000 parts bin. You can't even use the parts because if the SSD is separated from the machine, then it like doesn't even work. And there's no spare parts of it. It's like it's rough, dude. It's really rough. So if you are I saw some people that were like, hit up the super chat, folks. If you really want to help and make all of this worthwhile, my so far $4,000 loss, because I don't know if Apple is actually going to be able to help or be willing to help. If you want to help, go sign up for the sponsor of the video. Seriously, that's the best thing that you can do. Get a free trial. Go to the video that I posted on why Apple won't let you upgrade. Engage with the sponsor. That's our third wall panel. Seriously, sponsor engagement. They love it. That's the best way to help a YouTuber, and it's free. So if you really do want to help, do that. But apart from that, yeah, I'm out $4,000.
Okay, a hypothetical question. Not saying that,
Yeah.
that you should actually do this, but
Hmm.
if you package that thing up all nice and neat in its box and returned it to Apple, what would happen?
I honestly don't know. I know we've talked about returns and how some people don't like when YouTubers buy and return stuff. So far, I mean, in my life I've only returned like 3 Apple products. And if you know how many Apple products I buy, that's a small amount. I'm
Yeah.
probably going to return my iPad Air just because I was going to keep it and have it sitting around. Same with the iPhone SE, same with I have to send some stuff back because I need to essentially comp this $4,000 loss. Because I personally don't feel good about returning a machine that's been tampered with. And I know that that's goofy after I just slammed Apple for making a machine that you can't tamper with, but I don't know. I feel ethically not great about the idea of returning this. You know what I mean?
No, I agree. I don't think that you should do that, but I'm really hoping that there's gotta be, like, unless you fried the computer somehow, which I don't think you did, there's gotta be a way, maybe a
Right?
configurator update, maybe someone at Apple will be willing to help you out, but there's gotta be a way to get that thing back.
I really hope. I hope that someone smarter than me can find something out. I have tried, believe me, I've been scouring comments, I've been reading Twitter DMs, I've been trying um a lot of different things to do, but I just I don't know. I mean, and a lot of people here are just saying like, do it, send it back. Apple flexible return policy is baked into the high pricing. If you never return things, you're paying for other people's returns. Probably true. They have a no questions asked return policy. You're not taking advantage of something if it's explicitly allowed, yada, yada. I don't know. There's something that feels weird about doing it with something that's like broken by the user. Ugh, I really don't know. I'm gonna return the iPad Air for sure. Probably gonna return the iPhone SE as well, or I'll sell that. Give someone on Twitter a good deal. But I don't know. I really don't know.
Yeah, I think I'm really hoping there's a way to get that thing fixed. Maybe it won't be free. I mean, you obviously you'd think, I mean, I guess you technically violated the warranty, so maybe you'll have to pay something.
Yeah.
But hopefully it'll be a lot less than $4,000.
And see, people are like, you can return stuff if you don't want it. Well, it's not really a matter of not wanting it. It's a matter of it doesn't work, it doesn't turn on, and the fact that it doesn't turn on is because of something that I did to it. You could argue correctly that it's poorly designed and that they should not have made a machine that can so easily be like bugged out to the point of not booting. Like, it's almost insanely incompetent that they were able to design a machine that, with their own tools, following their own instructions on their own website, with its own original SSD, cannot come back to life, which is crazy. Now this is an interesting comment.
Yeah.
Come to Apple Georgetown on Friday evening. I'll help you. Is this a lifeline from an admittedly very local 3-mile away Apple store? I don't know. Maybe that person should shoot me an email and we can talk. But yeah, I just don't, bro, why would you design something this expensive that's so temperamental with a removable storage module? Like, you have to put energy into making something that behaves like this, right? It's just ridiculous.
Yeah, either that or there's legitimately like a bug with configurator and hopefully they'll fix it. But I don't know.
And this person here, it's not incompetence, it's planned obsolescence or obsoleteness, I guess they said. I don't even think it's that. I got to be honest, I don't think Apple does. I know this might sound contradictory, but I don't think Apple does planned obsolescence. I really don't. Because their stuff works when it works really well and for a very long time. Without stuff like water damage and stuff like that, right? Obviously that can shorten the lifespan of your device. Water is known to do that. But that's similar on other things too. And it's bad that you can't replace individual components. That's obviously. But I mean, Apple supports stuff for a really long time, not just in software, but in terms of replacement parts. With a lot of older devices, you'll find like, even like if you build a PC 5 years later, something goes wrong, you're gonna have to replace that component because chances are they're not gonna like repair it for you. Like if your motherboard gets broken, obviously it's not the same as replacing a logic board, but it's unlikely that the manufacturer is still stocking replacement parts for that 5 years later, but Apple does. And they design stuff so that you can keep using your iPhone for 7 years, or a Mac for about 7 or 8 years, or an iPad for 8 years. Like, that's, I don't think it's planned obsolescence. I think it's planned. I think it's locking a device for its lifespan. A long lifespan, not trying to kill it sooner, but trying to make sure that you can't upgrade it on your time. Not so that it'll end up as e-waste necessarily, but so that you'll have to buy a new one and then sell your old one. Like, locking a machine to 1 terabyte isn't necessarily going to mean that in 5 years it's not usable. It might just mean that in 5 years you'll have to buy a new one if you want more. That's what I think is going on here.
Yeah, I definitely. Someone commented planned upselling. I agree with that. It's like, and in the front half, when you're first buying the machine, they tell you like, oh, like for the Mac Studio, they said, oh, the storage is not upgradable. If you think you're going to need more in the future, you have to buy it now. So that's the first part. And then the second part is, a little while down the road, when you have that computer and there's a new one out, or it's starting to show its age a little bit, then you got to buy a new one. And someone else, you can sell that, and someone else will have a great time with it, or you can trade it into Apple and they'll put it on their refurb store. But yeah, so the devices themselves, Apple does a great job of supporting, but they do it in a way that will make you want to upgrade despite the fact that these devices last for so long. And that's what they're good at.
Exactly. I think that's nail on the head. Great comment, great analysis. We gotta wrap this show up here. If you are feeling bad for me and my said $4,000 paperweight, go check out those videos. Sign up for the sponsor. Like, that's the best thing that you can do, at no or minimal cost to you to help me out here. But let me go ahead and bring up the old poll here, because we have a pretty interesting situation, which is that the most guessed number of wall panels was correct. I and 15 people, 14 others, correctly guessed that 3 wall panels have fallen off. So unless something crazy happens in the next 4 seconds, are you tampering?
What?
Are you tampering?
I don't
get out
of there.
What
you're talking about.
No tampering.
I don't know.
My goodness. The votes have been counted. I won. Suck it, Noah.
All right, I did go with 4, so I'll give you this one.
You know what else you gave me?
What's
a fantastic transition to wrapping up this week's episode. Thank you guys so much for watching. I have been your host, Luke Miani.
And I've been your host, Noah Rubin. Have a great night. And we will be off for the next 3 weeks, but Luke might be doing something in the interim, if you want to mention that.
Yeah, so we might have a special episode in 2 weeks, but Noah is going to be out of town. And so for the next 3 weeks, we will not have normal scheduling, but stay tuned. Obviously, if you're subscribed, I'll be posting in the community tab. Hopefully we'll have a special episode with some special guests at some point in there. But yeah, thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.